I'm pulling up
What?
CLNS Media's season preview and bold predictions. John Zannis. Let me find it here. Ime Udoka finishes the season as head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. The Celtics and Udoka eventually finalize their divorce papers, setting Ime free. Kyrie Irving informs current Nets head coach Steve Nash that he's been fired in a long, rambling Instagram live post. The last part was close, but not quite.
No, but that was part of the humor of it. I'm not taking the victory lap. I honestly think that this is something a lot of people saw coming, in the sense that it was very clear that the Celtics, when they suspended Ime Udoka, wanted nothing to do with him anymore. This was a suspension that should have been a firing, that wasn't a firing. We're guessing for some sort of legal reasons or whatever it was, or they're trying to figure out how to get out from under the contract. How do you get out from under a contract? You hold the guy, you suspend him for a cause, you withhold some money, which I'm sure they did this year, and then you keep him in friggin' jail, in purgatory, and say, we'll set you free, and as long as someone else pays you, we don't have to pay you anymore. You're not going to sue us, and everybody's done. And that's what appears happens here, as the Nets now are basically in the final stages of hiring Ime Udoka as their next head coach. But Bobby, there's like a zillion questions here, and again, it's hard to separate the the off-court component from the on-court component, in terms of what Ime did, if that justified the the suspension and the firing, whether the Nets have just absolutely no morals whatsoever. A little bit of everything, a little column A, column B. It's hard to kind of figure out, but it's without the details, which we never got, in terms of what it was that led to Udoka's dismissal. It's very hard to have a strong opinion on what has happened here, because again, you don't know. And again, it doesn't matter what we think. The problem is going to be in the Celtics locker room, as we saw on media day, with how they're going to react to this. Like, so that's it, huh?
Yep.
We still don't know. And now he's gone, and now he's coaching those guys, and now those guys are going to be better. And if that's how they feel, then that's what is real as far as on the court. It's hard to take a hard moral stance without knowing exactly what happened. You just know that it was inappropriate, simply because of the fact that any sort of inter-office romance where there's a power dynamic at play is an inappropriate relationship. That's understandable. But to the players, it's never been explained to them, so they don't actually know. So they've had a tough time knowing how to feel. Now they have to process a whole other set of emotions, now that they know that their head coach from last year is gone forever and about to go coach one of their rivals, a division rival. So there's a lot going on if you're at the Celtics.
Yeah, definitely. But at the same time, it also wipes the slate clean here, which I think is obviously what they plan to do here by letting him go and, not seeking compensation, which I'm still not sure if that's even possible. I've kind of poked around on that today.
It's
I don't
allowed.
know.
It's still allowed, I believe. I thought so. I think it happened once after Doc, but not for a while, since Jason Kidd, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check into that. So we'll figure out the answer to that concretely. But from everything you said right there, I think that's all true. It raises that question again for the players here. I don't think we'll get any more answers in terms of what happened here. But all you can assume from what's happened here, I think, is that he was never going to be the coach of the Celtics again. And I think we all had an idea that that was the case. But this confirms it here. You basically have a situation where the Celtics had to either decide they were going to prevent Udoka from becoming the coach of the Nets or let him go. And they chose to let him go. That you would presume takes all the money off the books this year and for years to come, whatever was left on his contract. And, there was talk of what the suspension or what the penalization actually was this year in terms of his salary. I think Stephen A said he got docked by half. So what are you paying him? Half for 6 games, and now it's all in the Nets. So Ime's out of here. This, I think, goes to show that he was never going to be the coach here again. I saw Gary Washburn tweet that the Celtics are fully behind Joe Mazzulla at this point, and it's Brooklyn's problem now. Whatever comes out of the situation, whatever it was here, but it was clearly an untenable situation in Boston that prevented him from being head coach here any longer, right? Because the Nets looked at it and said, we can have him as head coach. However, nefarious that might be.
And again, it's hard to know. But if I'm sitting here guessing how this went down, the Nets have had their eye on Udoka since he was suspended, and we're looking for an excuse. And this thing, the fact that it happened after a win means it's been in the works. Okay.
Yep.
So it's been in the works, and the fact that it came together so quickly from the first tweets being Udoka is a candidate to Udoka is a leading candidate to
They threw Quinn Snyder's name in there for the hell of it.
to it's basically a done deal. This thing's been a done deal since the Celtics suspended Ime. The Nets knew we're gonna do this. Also means they probably had a little bit more time to do due diligence. There's no question they reached out to the Celtics well before Nash was fired to have discussed whatever they and get whatever feedback.
Yeah,
the
Celtics made a quick decision here too. Oh, we're letting them go. We don't have to think about it.
And you knew that's what they wanted. I mean, it makes sense that the Celtics. This was the outcome the Celtics wanted all along, which is, like I said, you put them in jail here and say, at least a year. We'll see after that. Basically meaning we can, as long as we're paying you, we can decide whether you go somewhere else or not. And if you're Udoka, you're like, they're never bringing me back. I gotta let them set me free if there's another job here. And there was. I think, again, it's not. I think a lot of people suspected Udoka would have been on a very short list of a lot of different teams if there were firings later in the year. The Nets just moved extremely quickly. You're telling me if 2 months from now, a couple of other coaches are relieved from their duty, that's the thing, is everyone's going to talk about the Nets being kind of this morally reprehensible franchise. And yes, this does smack of, is this not analogous, Bobby, to last year, letting Kyrie Irving play road games after things didn't look right? Yeah.
They react to the situation.
Whatever morals you have, you're going to throw them out the window if it impacts the bottom line. And that's what was happening with Kyrie. And that's what's currently
would
happening.
This be happening if they were? Would this be happening if they were 7-0?
That's the thing is, I don't know, but I do feel that they were going to look for that first excuse to fire Nash wherever it came. I think Nash knew it. I think you could tell from the tone of the way he was talking about what was going on around, just describing.
You knew when he went crazy on the sideline too, getting ejected.
He gets ejected, but he's basically like, this is a failure. This is a disgrace. The type of words he was using to describe what was going on, flat out saying, like, I don't care what Kyrie says. We're used to this donkey spewing this nonsense all the time.
He'd become immune to this.
Immune to it was great little dig there. So they knew. The question that's on everybody's mind, that's going to be the crux of this entire debate from now until the end of time, potentially, because you just never know what you're going to know or if you'll ever know it, is, again, are the Nets the worst organization in sports and the only people alive that would have hired Ime Udoka after whatever it was that he did to get him suspended from the Celtics? Again, did the Celtics do something that might have been a little harsh or a little severe that maybe some other teams might not have done, and that a lot of other teams out there would be like, I hear you, I don't love it, based on the information I have, but I don't know that I would have acted that way, and I don't know if that's going to be prohibitive. From me having him coach. And I really do believe, as he said, is, where we would have really seen this, Bobby, if at the end of the year there were 7 head coaching vacancies and Ime was at the top of all of them. That would tell you a lot about what other teams thought about what was going on here. And yes, there's lots of people willing to compromise. The thing is, what makes them different than the Celtics? The Celtics thought it was so bad they wanted nothing to do with him ever again. The Nets thought, oh my God, what an opportunity. I'm going to go and hire this guy. It's 2 different teams, 2 different sets of thinking. And it's interesting. And I don't really know what to make of it. And we never will. I don't have an opinion because, again, without the details, I can't say it. If we knew,
and that's their advantage. Yeah.
If we knew, Bobby, that what the Celtics had done was horrible, and all the details were out and the Nets swooped in anyway and said, I'm cool. Like, for example, who just got released?
Josh Primo.
You go sign Primo knowing what you know right now. That says a lot about you because it's out there, I mean, it literally and figuratively. It's bad, right? I mean, so there's no hiding that. You're right. The Nets can hide behind the secrecy that the Celtics investigation provides. And we just you're never going to know.
And Udoka can too. there's not going to be any more revelations despite him taking the podium in Brooklyn whenever they decide to introduce him. He can just no commented, and the Nets can move on and no commented. And it is, I mean, they have the onus of explaining it now, right? Like everything in terms of
Well,
questioning
what will
and
they say? I mean, every team does this. The
yeah.
Patriots that like to talk about the Patriot way, their true philosophy is they haven't done anything while they were here. And that's a lot of teams' philosophy is whatever they've done elsewhere, you know, they haven't done here. So yes, that might have been inappropriate, or I don't know the office dynamics there, and we don't know the details and the blow
Or
by
we
blow.
weren't
Yeah,
we
we're
weren't
not
able to get
privy to all
details.
of it. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, if it's not legal, if it's not completely out in the open, you have plausible deniability and a lot of cover, as the Nets do, and as any team would have had. So I'm not surprised a team would move that quickly. A lot of people are like, the Nets are the worst. They do anything. I think a lot of teams would jump at a chance to do that if they have enough cover to do so. Really, it comes down to, in many cases, PR rather than actual morals for most people. You're going to pretend that you care about stuff and you're going to say things and put things out publicly. But at the end of the day, we know a lot of these teams will try to push the envelope as far as they can, as far as character issues or character concerns, just to get their guys, whether it's their coach or their players.
Yeah, and on the flip side of that, the Celtics, I know everyone's reacting to whether or not they went too far with the punishment here. I think this shows that it wasn't about the year. It wasn't about severely punishing. It was about buying themselves time to get out of whatever contractual legal situation they were in there. Like if they suspended him 6 games, all of a sudden 7th game, is he coming back? Is he not? At this point, I think it's pretty clear that once the year was up, he wasn't coming back. This wasn't about, all right, you're gone for 1 year and then you're coming back. So this was the easiest off ramp to get him off the team for whatever reason they wanted to do that. And they accomplished it here. So does it stink he's going to a division rival and a potential conference rival and potentially helping them here? Yeah, but you basically wiped the slate clean, and that's what you wanted to do here, I would imagine.
Yeah. There's no doubt. It is, if you look at it from the Celtics perspective, fine. You can say it is it's a win in the sense that they no longer have to deal with this headache. It's not hanging
What were
over
their
their.
alternatives?
They had none. And that's the thing is, here's your alternative. Okay. There was one alternative. The alternative is not allowing the Nets to do it because you didn't like the direction there, but letting the next team.
But then do things get more stinky with Udoka behind the scenes while he's waiting? Like, because I feel like everything to
It's
this
possible.
Point,
You're saying was there another? That's the only other option.
Okay,
The only other option is saying, I'm not saying it was a great one, but the only option was saying we're just not going to allow him to go to a conference contender. But then the next opening that comes up, someone says they want to talk, you say yes. Could you have done that? Maybe, maybe it's something you would have considered. But that's the only thing. Other than that, they wanted him gone, and I think we're really happy to do it. Again, if you're Wick, you don't want to be paying him half of what he's owed this year and then potentially much, much, much more of it, because the reality is they wanted to fire him, but didn't fire him because they didn't want to eat the money.
That's still the big question.
That's why they
wasn't
didn't
he
fire
fired?
him. It's clearly in their eyes a fireable offense that they didn't fire him. They suspended him for cause. The Celtics willed this to happen. Anybody wondering, and anybody asking questions about why there's no compensation, this is the compensation. The compensation is the tons of money that Wick gets back, not having to pay for it. Does it help the Celtics? No, it helps Wick's wallet. It doesn't help the Celtics. People want to. People would rather have Wick pay $50 million for a first round draft pick. Of course you would.
And the Nets also have none.
Yeah, right. But the Celtics willed this to happen by suspending and not firing him, thus creating this situation whereby someone would come in and say, hey, can I talk to the guy? And he'd be like, sure, yeah, totally. If you want to take, and that's it. But again, from a common fan, this has like luxury tax vibes to it, which is like, great. Wick saves a buck, but the team is worse. So yes, would you have liked to be able to hold out for compensation? Sure. They didn't. Their compensation was not having to pay him.
Yeah, and again, you're gonna, if that's your goal, you're going to hold the line, and there's the potential of it getting messy with Udoka behind the scenes if you're delaying that opportunity. And are the Nets really going to give you a pick or a second round or a first round? Again, that's the part I think we need more clarity on. I had asked a while ago if that was possible, and I don't think it's happened since Doc, and I don't know exactly why that is. I had heard that it wasn't possible to trade a coach per se anymore. So was it possible? Maybe. But even if it was, again, Nets have one Philadelphia pick that might actually be subject to the Stepien rule where you can't trade picks in consecutive years because they've traded all their picks through 27 to Houston. And then on top of that, were you really going to get a pick in this circumstance? I don't think so.
Let's be real. If you were, it was probably a second rounder, and it's not
Yeah.
something that would have really mattered that much. So again, I think people are hung up on the compensation, and that's not really part of the story. And as I
also
said,
think people are hung up on the fact that could you have brought him back, or you lost him, or is Joe a bit? What for whatever reason he couldn't be the coach of the Celtics anymore, and he needed to go, and they got him out of here.
yeah.
Was it the right move? Was it the wrong move? We'll never know that because we'll never know exactly what happened behind the scenes.
Let me tell you this. If you're the Celtics right now, okay, the Celtics were adamant at the press conference that there were no leaks, okay? They didn't leak it. They had no reason to leak any of this stuff. And that's understandable. Right now, if you're the Celtics and you're taking some heat because there's a faction of fans out there, a large one, that is like, WTF, man, you know, like, did we really have to let this guy go? Now he's going to the competition. He's going to make them better. That sucks. There's a huge faction that thinks that because they don't know the details. Now, if you're the Celtics, does it benefit you to start leaking some details? Now that Ime is not here anymore, now that the threat of a lawsuit isn't really exist for you, you don't have to pay him. There's no money on the line here. It would benefit you from in the court of public perception to start leaking a little bit about how bad this was. I'm not saying they will. I'm just saying it would.
Let's see what Ime says first, right?
Ime will say nothing and take the high road because it benefits him to do so. Because last thing he wants to do is sling mud. If you're Ime, you want to distance yourself from this as much as possible. Almost treat it like it didn't happen, unless you have to. There's no reason you would volunteer anything. It was amicable. I understood the organization's decision. I'm happy to move forward here. This is all I want to talk about. That's where you're going there. He's not going to be like those it doesn't make sense for him. You don't want to get
it. Yeah, I mean, it'll be clear if something does come out.
But if it starts to trickle, then you have a good idea why. Because it makes sense for the Celtics if it's bad. And you hate to cheapen, think about the idea that, and this is what will also suck about it. You didn't say anything to protect privacy. And that's great because that's what you should do. Protect privacy. And nothing should be out there because it's humiliating and you are trying to protect the privacy and dignity of one of your employees. But if you start to do it now because it benefits you, then all of that stuff was BS also about the privacy. You were worried about lawsuits is all you were worried about. So we'll see what happens. The curiosity, people want to know more, but in terms of the employee and the people who are directly impacted by this, you want them to not have to think or deal with this ever again.
And again, what do people think? Like, do you think
as best they can? That's impossible, but still.
Do you think the Celtics stupidly hurt themselves here? Do people think the Celtics are just stupid and naive and did this all to themselves without a good reason? That's what I keep going back to.
It's not that. I think it's this, Bobby. I think if they did, I think that you can only look at this not in terms of did they do the right thing? Chances are, yes, they did the right thing.
They might have did what they had to do.
They might have done what they had to do. It's not, but it's a different set of, it's a different scale. By, would every other organization in the same exact situation also have done this, or did they react even more strongly than most did or would? It's not an overreaction in the sense of like, if you find something that one of your employees did that doesn't jive with your company's core values, it makes sense that any employer would decide to move on from that person. Totally. But this is a different world. There's zillions of dollars at stake. It's an extremely high profile and an important position, and one that would place a lot of emphasis in, and one that they clearly saw bear fruit in year one. They clearly did not want to do this unless they felt they had to. So again, it was either so bad that they had no choice, or they might have had a little bit of a, quick trigger finger relative to what maybe some other teams would have done. That's I guess as much as I could say. There might be a lot of teams that would have, and possibly wrongly so, tried to bury it, get past it, done an in-house thing, done something small, done whatever, done something to make it go away.
Yeah,
And
they
it's possible some teams would have. So you're comparing to them, not to whether it was right and wrong. In a world of right and wrong, my guess is they're well justified to have done what they did.
probably.
That's my guess.